Hello, my name is Amanda from the YouTube channel and blog Rise and Procrastinate, and I am so excited to be joining the Lavinia World YouTube design team. I am going to be making a light up card for you today, so the video is a little bit longer, but I hope you'll stick with me because it is really a quite fun card. So we are going to be stamping out the Moon Fairy and the Wishing Tree first. Please forgive me, my ink pad here is a bit dry, so we're going to stamp it out a couple times. But I am using Gina K Amalgam ink because I wasn't quite sure at this point exactly what coloring medium I was going to be using to color the moon. And in a minute we're going to be stamping the shanty as well, and I wasn't sure what I was going to color the shanty with either. The video did end up getting quite long, so I did cut out the coloring, but I'll go ahead and tell you that I did use my Arteza real brush markers to color the elements in this, the stamps at least. So I will leave that in the supply list so you can get the colors if you are curious what colors I colored everything. So I'm just going to stamp out the shanty here. And again, like I said, my pad is a bit dry. I do need to order a re-inker for it now that shipping is getting a little bit better. So I'm just going to stamp that out a couple times as well. But I was really quite impressed with the way these stamps stamp, and they're not, they don't stick to your paper like a lot of brand new stamps do, and that was a really nice surprise. I mean, they are photopolymer stamps, but they, I don't know if they wash them or what. They just don't stick. They're not sticky, but they stick to your platform. I don't know if that makes any sense, but it was very nice. It wasn't so annoying like a lot of new photopolymer stamps are. They're sometimes can be really annoying how they stick to everything. So I'm just masking out the shanty, and I masked out the Moon Fairy too. I just fussy cut these. A lot of times I will use my scan and cut to cut masks because, well, I'm lazy and I don't like to fussy cut. But because of the little dots around the shanty, I figured that would just kind of be a pain in the butt. And I am masking out the rocks here too. So you don't have to get a perfect mask on this. It's really not a big deal. I just wanted, well, I'm a messy ink blender, so I didn't want to ink blend. Oh, real quick. This is a DIY stencil that I cut with my Cricut. It's just, it's kind of hard to see because it's clear. So I tried to show you on a black piece of paper, but I don't really know if you can see it real well. So it's basically, I just, I found some grass blades in Cricut Design Space, and I just, I cut them out of, I sliced them out of a square. So I have the like negative of the grass, on one end. Well, I think it was actually on both ends, but I'm only using the one end. So I'm just ink blending some grass basically onto the bottom of this to give it a little bit more whimsy or interest. And so I'm doing that in mowed lawn and then peeled paint to give it two different colors to give it a bit more interest and make it look a little bit more realistic or whatever. So I'm just finishing that up, and then we're going to move on to some serious ink blending here. So for the moon, I wanted it to glow, the moon that the fairy's sitting on. So I'm just going to start off on the mask so I don't get any weird blobs with my ink blending that, you know, is kind of hard to ink blend out. I believe I was using a hot press Fabriano watercolor paper here. I don't remember. I did film this a little over a week ago, and then now I'm trying to edit and voice over. We had a basement disaster in my house. My basement flooded. Long story. But yeah, so I did some filming, and then I had some people come in and bring fans, and it was a nightmare, and I couldn't film, and yeah. So anyway, long story. So there was some time in between my filming and my editing, and I don't usually like to leave that much time. But I did start off ink blending on the mask so I didn't get the blobbies, and tried to ink blend out so I got more of a diffused look, like the moon was shining. So now I'm coming in with Wilted Violet, and I'm just kind of, this I don't mind if it's blobby here, and it's gonna look like a hot mess. it's going to look worse before it looks better, but just trust the process. It's fine. You kind of want some blobby areas and some different color here, different color there. I chose purple for my sky, and then I'm going to go over it with some blues in a minute. So I'm just kind of wanting some different areas in the sky. I can't talk today apparently, which really isn't anything new if you're familiar with me. I forget things and sometimes I just can't say words, but it's fine. So we're just going to get some blobby areas in the sky just to give us some different areas of color. And like I said, this is gonna look worse before it looks better, but it will come together in the end. Just trust the process. So now we're going in with some chipped sapphire. I want the darkest area in the top, or towards the top of the sky, and then we're going to have it get lighter as we get towards the bottom. Sorry, my computer freaked out there. I hope that didn't mess up my voiceover. All right, so I'm just going to blend it out towards the bottom, and I will come in with faded jeans here in a second. So I just want the faded jeans and the chipped sapphire to blend nicely together. So I'm just kind of fading the chipped sapphire out towards the bottom. And like I said, yeah, I know this looks horrible, guys, but it will get better, I promise. So now we're coming in with the faded jeans, and I'm going to start that off towards the bottom, and I will come up towards the top too. Yeah, right there. But like I said, I want different colors in the sky. It's, the sky isn't all one color usually, especially like, like the northern lights and stuff like that. And that's kind of what I'm going for, is like a galaxy type sky. So I don't want it to be all one color. I just want to avoid the yellow of the moon because, purple and yellow make mud, make brown, and blue and yellow make green, and I didn't really want those colors in my sky, so I did want to avoid that. Now I'm coming in with the black soot, and I just want that around the edges, but again, I want to avoid that moon because the moon is shining a light down on the area, so I don't want to get the blackness on the light, so we want to avoid that area. But I don't want the sky to look like it's, daytime. Well, it wouldn't look like it's daytime, but I wanted it to look darker, basically. So, and especially around the edges. So it looks like it's darker, further out in the distance. So now we're I wanted to dry it a little bit so I could remove my masks. And I left this part in because I know a lot of people find removing the masks satisfying, but I did speed it up. So, when you remove your masks, be slow and don't tear your paper. But this is sped up, even though it didn't really look like it was that fast, but trust me, it is sped up. And so just be careful, if your mask starts to rip, let it rip, and just go back for it, a second try from a different direction. So then when I removed my mask, obviously, because they weren't cut perfectly, and I am not a perfect person, there is some white areas around the around the house and the moon and that kind of stuff. So I wanted to fill that in. And I was thinking, because this was watercolor paper, I was going to be able to spread the color that was already on the paper out, but that was not happening. This is not very good watercolor paper. I was hoping just to use it up, but it's I'm glad it's almost gone because this paper frustrates me. So what I did instead was I smushed the ink pads off to the side on my white area of my glass mat. And I just went in with a paintbrush and grabbed some of the ink and some water it down because it would go on way too strong if you don't. So water it down a little bit, and then I just went in and filled in the white area around the shanty and the ferry. And I obviously did not show you the whole thing because we would be here all day if I did. I mean, it wasn't that bad, but there were some areas, and it took me some time. So now I'm just splattering some clean, clear water on the image, and I did want to protect my fairy because I didn't want splatter on the moon and the fairy. Well, the fairy wouldn't matter because it's a waterproof ink, but I didn't want any splatters on the moon because I didn't. So I'm just splattering until I am satisfied with the splatter, and then I'm going to pick it up with my tea towel. And then we're going to come in with some Arteza gouache. and I have the big 60 set or whatever it is, but I just wanted the white. So I'm going to take some white, and I should not have removed my masks when I did. This was a huge mistake. So I'm just going to try to mask off my areas. I could have probably dug the masks out of the trash and put them back on, but I was being lazy. So I'm just going to use the backing paper that I found and a circle that I found on my desk and just cover them up that way. And then I don't know why I took the circle off the fairy. That was dumb, because now you see that I've got white splatters on my black fairy. That was not smooth. But we will fix that. So I'm just splattering away here. And then we are going to, okay, so here's where I'm fixing that. So the gouache was still kind of wet, I believe, at this point. Maybe I let it dry, I don't remember. But anyway, so I watered it down, and I just kind of picked it up with my tea towel. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm just using clean, clear water and watering it down and then just picking it up. And for the most part, that got most of it off. Off camera, I did take a black Memento, I believe it is, pen, and went over the fairy. Later, that was kind of a mistake, because when I went in, I realized I forgot some of the areas around the fairy that were masks off, and I went in with the squeezed lemonade to fill in those areas, and my brush touched some of the Memento ink, and it spread because Memento ink is not waterproof. So that was kind of a mistake, but we cover that up with my sentiment later, so no big deal. Nobody knows except you and me. All right, so I'm taking some of the Star Group miniature and the Meadow Mushroom miniature, I believe it's called. I don't know, I popped it up on the screen. Sorry, guys. And I'm just stamping some more of those because I decided that I needed some more in my scene, because I don't have enough going on already. I am not a clean and simple girl. You will learn that about me if you haven't already. If you're not familiar with my channel, you will learn that I am not a clean and simple girl. So I had to add some more stars and a couple mushrooms. And now we're going to get up to the light up part. So off screen, I cut, with an X-Acto knife, I cut the window out of the shanty. And with a hole punch, I cut one of the stars, a hole out of the star. And now I'm just tracing that onto a backing paper, or a card panel, basically. And then I'm showing you here the battery that I'm using. It's a CR2016, and it is a 3-volt battery. You can use any 3-volt battery that's flat like that. But I prefer the CR2016 because, as you can see, it is like paper thin almost. It is so thin. So I just laid it on top of my door because that's where I want the push button to be, I decided. And then I just slid that panel off so I could keep it in the same place and decide that, so it's in the same place, and I could just trace around the battery, and that's where I want my door. And now I'm showing you here, this is the little strip of paper that I have folded in half and is big enough for my battery, and this is what we're going to make the switch out of. It is just a piece of cardstock. It's nothing special. I got it from my scrap bin, and it's just big enough to fit that battery. That's really all you need. And we're going to glue that to the mark that I made my battery, my silly little off circle there, because I can't draw a circle. So we're just going to glue that down. And then we are going to map out our positive and our negatives wires. And I just like to map this out so I can visually see where I'm going to lay down my copper wire. Well, it's not wire, it's copper tape. But anyway, so this is pretty simple if you've never done it before. There's a lot of light up kits that you can buy and things like that. Personally, I'm kind of cheap, and I don't find this very hard to do. So you need a positive and a negative, going from the positive and the negative of your battery. And there's a positive and a negative on each one of your lights. So it's really pretty simple. You just need to connect the circuit with the positive and the negative on each one of your things. Your positive and your negative on your battery, positive and negative on your lights. Real simple. So as you see, I've got my 2 lines there, and I drew a positive and a negative. And it doesn't matter which side they're on. You could have your positive on your left side or your right side. It doesn't really matter as long as they match up to your battery and your light. So this is the copper foil tape that I'm using. You don't have to use this brand. You just need to make sure that it has a conductive adhesive on it. And the reason why my lines are so close together is because I have really, 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 really tiny lights. If your lights are not so tiny, you don't have to have them close together. The biggest thing is that your tape needs to be close enough that it'll touch the positive and the negative contacts on your lights. And my lights are super tiny. You will see them in a minute. I do not suggest having such tiny lights. But it's what I have. I have several hundred of them, and I don't want to throw them away and waste them. So it's what I'm using. So if you end up getting bigger lights, and I do suggest you get bigger lights, you would want your tape being further apart, and you don't want the copper tape to touch. These two strands of copper tape, you do not want them to touch. All right, so I'm putting this over underneath the switch, or underneath the flap of the switch, and over the top because I need it to touch the top of my battery. My battery's going to go in that little hole. And then we're going to turn around a corner here. So you fold it over on top of itself and then back the other way. And you don't want to break the tape. It's not the end of the world if you break the tape. You can just connect it together, but it's better if you don't break the tape. And then I'm just going to run it up the side here, up next to it, and make sure it's really close at that point where I marked where my light was going to be. Because like I said, my lights are really tiny. And I could have cut this tape down the middle, to be honest, but I didn't really want to. I just don't like cutting the tape in half, to be honest. And then I'm just burnishing it down to make sure that it's got a good strong connection with my card and everything's nice and flat. And then we're going to start putting the lights on. And here are my little lights. So they come in this little package, and then I just peel it off. And I'm going to show you how tiny this little thing is. It is like a grain of sand. You see how tiny that is? Really, really tiny. So these are called SMT LEDs, and that's what you need to look for if you want to buy these type of lights and you don't want to get the kits that can be kind of expensive. I mean, if you want to get the kits, more power to you, but these are really cheap. So on the bottom side of these lights, there's this little T, and you can't see it on my light. It's just, you can't. So I drew my little self a little map. So there's a little T, and one side is the positive and one side's the negative, if you saw my little post-it note there. So that's what I need to look at to know which side is the positive and which side's the negative. So I believe it was the flat side. I'm not looking at my little map there, but whatever side I marked was the positive. That is the side that needs to go on the positive side, and the other side's the one that needs to go on the negative side. So that's which side I have to look at and line it up to my copper wires on which one's the positive and which one's the negative. And then I just put my battery in there to which side's the positive and which side's the negative. And I close my little door on my switch. And once everything makes contact, as long as I made sure everything was positive on the positive side and everything was negative on the negative side, then we get lights just like that. And all I did was tape those lights down. I don't use glue because I've found that it kind of interferes with the conductivity. I've tried to use glue in the past, and sometimes I had success, sometimes I didn't. Sometimes the lights fell off, sometimes they didn't. It was kind of a pain. So I've just found that taping these little buggers down was the best way to go. So now we get with the foam tape. So I just put the foam tape down all over. You can put foam tape over the copper tape, as you can see. I just go around the lights and go around the switch. Those are the only things that you don't want to cover up, obviously, because you need to see the light, and the switch needs to be able to work. So then you just need to make sure that the switch works. Now see here, when I fold over the switch, it starts to light up before I even make contact with the top of the battery. So I knew that there was a problem, because when I put the panel on the battery, before I was even pushing down on the switch, it was lighting up. And that was because my tape was too far over here. the copper tape was making contact with the side of my battery instead of the top of my battery. Well, it would make contact with the top of the battery too, but it was making contact with the side of my battery and lighting up before it even hit the top of the battery. So all I needed to do was pull back the copper tape and cut it off. And that way, when I put my panel on here, and you see that I put the panel on and just kind of hold it down. Now it's not lighting up until I actually push the button. Then I could get away with only one layer of tape instead of 2 layers of tape, which is why I like the smaller batteries. All right, so I decided that the LED for the star was kind of white, and I thought it was yellow. The lights really aren't. I got a variety pack of lights, and they're kind of just marked with like a Sharpie or something in the color that they are, and they're kind of, sometimes it's a surprise what you get. So I decided that it was more white than yellow, so I wanted it really yellow, so I just took an alcohol marker, colored the vellum, and popped it over that hole so it was more yellow. And I'm just going to remove all the foam tape and stick my panel on there. Oh, I was gonna, I wanted to adhere the battery so it's not sliding around in there. But you do want to make sure that when you adhere the battery that you do not interfere with that copper tape. You want the battery to actually touch the copper tape instead of touching the adhesive that you're using to adhere your battery down. So that's the only thing. Make sure that the battery is touching that copper tape, not the adhesive or the score tape that I'm using for the to adhere the battery down. That's the only thing there. So then I'm just popping the panel on and making sure everything works still. There's a lot of testing in this card. You want to test after every little thing you do. Now I just turned off the lights so you could see that it does indeed light up. And then I mounted it on a black mat that was just a little bit bigger than my card panel here. And then we're going to pop it on the card base, I believe. Nope, I lie. We're going to do the sentiment. So I picked have a very happy birthday, I believe. And I'm going to white heat emboss that on black cardstock with Simon Says Stamp white embossing powder. And then I cut that out with my MFT slanted sentiment strip dies. And then I was just covering that a little boo-boo that I made. You can't really see it on camera, but I made a little boo-boo with that Memento ink pen that I said earlier, where I had kind of smeared it a little bit. So I just wanted to cover up the smear on her foot. I was kind of sad it covered up the heart too, but I didn't really know how else I was going to fix this. So I didn't want her foot to be all smeared and weird looking. And then we're going to put this on the card base, and I always do this. I always forget and put my popped up panels on my card base before I stamp my inside. And I almost always decorate the inside of my cards, so I don't know why I keep doing this to myself. But I do decorate the inside, so we're going to, oh, I forgot, we're going to spray some shimmer spray on top of it first. And I just use a DIY shimmer spray with some Perfect Pearls and water. I don't really have a recipe to that. I just fill my little bottle with water and put a little scoop of Perfect Pearls, shake it up. If it's shimmery enough, good. If it's not, then I add some more Perfect Pearls. So for the inside, we're going to take that star cluster and we're going to stamp it in chipped sapphire distress ink. And then I'm going to take one of the fairies from the 3 Dancing Fairies set and stamp it in VersaFine Claire Nocturne ink. Excuse me. And that's going to finish off the inside. Well, it's actually going to finish off the whole card. So I hope that you enjoyed my project today. And I'm just going to show you it lighting up here. And then I'm going to tilt it in the light so you can see that beautiful shimmer from the DIY shimmer spray. Look how pretty that is. All right, so I hope that you enjoyed my card today, and I will see you again in 2 weeks. And as always, I hope you have a great day.